Welcome to another deep dive.
All right, so today we're diving into something,
Really fascinating.
okay?
The concept of soberanía nacional in Mexico.
Right.
You've sent over some
Right.
really intriguing research on how it's playing out under AMLO, and I'm ready to unpack it all.
Yeah, it's interesting you say unpack because
Yeah.
to really grasp Soberanía Nacional, we need to kind of like dig into Mexico's history.
Yeah.
It's not just a political slogan, it's woven into the fabric of their national identity.
Yeah, you're right. It's more than just a phrase in a political science textbook.
Right.
Give me a bit of that historical context.
Okay.
What events have made soberanía nacional resonate so deeply with the Mexican people?
Well, imagine centuries of fighting for independence,
Right.
pushing back against foreign powers, trying to control their resources and destiny. You've got the Spanish conquest,
Yeah.
then Mexican independence, but even after that,
Right.
the fight for true self-determination continued.
Okay, so it's about this long history of struggle and a desire to control their own fate.
Exactly.
How does that historical legacy influence how soberanía nacional is viewed today,
All right.
particularly under AMLO?
Well, AMLO is really tapping into that historical current almost like he's channeling the spirit of past leaders like Benito Juarez, who resisted French intervention in the 19th century.
Okay.
AMLO invokes these figures to remind Mexicans of their history of resilience
Right.
and their capacity for self-reliance.
So he's using history as a rallying cry almost.
Precisely.
Yeah.
He's saying we've overcome challenges in the past and we can do it again. And for many Mexicans, especially those who feel left behind by globalization,
Yeah.
this message of national pride and self-determination is really powerful.
Yeah, it seems like AMLO is trying to translate that historical energy into concrete policies.
Right.
The source material mentions him wanting Mexican decisions to be made by Mexicans.
Yes.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It's about asserting control over key areas,
Okay.
like their economy and resources.
Uh-huh.
One way AMLO is trying to achieve this is through what he calls strategic projects.
Those sound intriguing. What are some examples of these strategic projects, and how do they reflect this idea of soberanía nacional?
A prime example is the construction of a new oil refinery in Dos Bocas, Tabasco. It's a massive undertaking estimated to cost billions. But AMLO argues it's essential for ending Mexico's dependence on foreign fuel imports.
So it's about gaining energy independence, a key aspect of any nation's sovereignty, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this desire for self-reliance extends beyond energy.
Okay.
AMLO is also a big proponent of fomento al consumo local,
Okay.
which translates to encouraging Mexicans to buy Mexican-made goods.
Now, I have to admit, I don't speak much Spanish.
Sure.
Could you elaborate on what fomento al consumo local means for the average person in Mexico?
Of course. Essentially, it's about promoting national products and reducing reliance on imports.
Okay.
Think of it as a buy local campaign, but on a national scale.
Yep.
AMLO believes this approach will strengthen domestic industries, create jobs, and boost the Mexican economy, all while reducing their reliance on foreign powers.
It sounds like he's trying to shift the balance of power, at least to a degree, and reduce dependence on any one country, particularly the United States. Speaking of the U.S., you can't talk about Mexican sovereignty without addressing their relationship with us.
Right.
That's a complex dance, isn't it?
It's a delicate balancing act, no doubt.
Yeah.
And AMLO isn't shying away from that.
Okay.
He seems to be deliberately charting a more independent course for Mexico, even if it means pushing back against certain U.S. policies.
Which, of course, raises the question how much independence is too much.
Right.
It seems like AMLO is walking a tightrope.
It is a delicate dance.
Yeah.
He wants to stand firm on principles of national sovereignty,
Right.
but also has to work within the realities of a globalized world and maintain a functional relationship with a powerful neighbor.
So where do we see this push and pull play out most clearly in their relationship?
Immigration is a prime example.
Okay.
AMLO has rejected the idea of Mexico simply acting as a buffer zone to stem the flow of migrants to the U.S.
Right.
He's advocating for addressing the root causes of migration,
Okay.
things like poverty, violence, and lack of opportunity, and pushing for more cooperative solutions rather than just stricter border control.
So instead of just reacting to U.S. pressure, he's trying to change the conversation entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's saying let's address the underlying issues that drive migration, not just the symptoms.
Right.
This approach has certainly created some friction,
Okay.
but it also highlights AMLO's determination to assert Mexico's own interests and be a more equal player on the world stage.
And that desire for a more balanced relationship likely influences his approach to trade as well, right?
Absolutely.
I know from the research you sent that the U.S. is still Mexico's biggest trading partner.
While he did negotiate the USMCA trade deal with the U.S. and Canada,
Right.
AMLO is simultaneously pushing for Mexico to diversify its trade partner,
Okay.
particularly in Latin America and Asia.
Right.
The goal, again, is to reduce dependence on any one country
Right.
and have more economic autonomy.
So it's a multi-pronged strategy.
Right.
Pushing back on immigration, diversifying trade partners, promoting domestic consumption.
Exactly.
Like he's weaving together these different threads to create a stronger sense of national self-reliance.
That's a great way to put it. And we see that same thread running through his approach to infrastructure.
Okay.
You mentioned the new oil refinery,
Right.
but there's also the construction of a new airport in Mexico City,
Okay.
the Felipe Angeles International Airport.
Right.
These projects are about more than just bricks and mortar.
Okay.
They're about national pride and showcasing Mexico's capabilities to the world.
It's about projecting an image of a nation that can stand on its own 2 feet.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And for AMLO, that image is as much about economic independence as it is about cultural identity.
Now, that's an interesting angle, cultural identity.
Yeah.
What role does that play in AMLO's vision of soberanía nacional?
It's a crucial aspect, even if it doesn't always make headlines.
Right.
AMLO has spoken out against what he sees as the negative influence of foreign media and consumerism on Mexican society.
Yeah. Okay.
He's trying to foster a sense of pride in Mexican culture and traditions, encouraging people to value their own heritage.
So it's about more than just economic indicators or trade deals.
Right.
It's about the soul of the nation.
Exactly. It's about defining what it means to be Mexican in the 21st century.
Oh, okay.
And for AMLO, that means being a nation that is self-assured, independent,
Yeah.
and deeply connected to its own roots.
This is all incredibly ambitious.
Yeah, it is.
It seems like AMLO is trying to reshape Mexico's place in the world.
Yeah.
But with such a bold vision,
Sure.
there are bound to be challenges.
Right.
What are some of the hurdles he's facing in his quest for a more sovereign Mexico? Well, certainly a bold vision, but like you said, such an ambitious undertaking is bound to face challenges. What are some of the hurdles AMLO might encounter in his quest for a more sovereign Mexico?
One of the biggest challenges is the reality of globalization itself. You can talk about self-reliance and reducing dependence, but we live in an interconnected world, and Mexico can't simply shut itself off from global forces.
It's like trying to swim upstream against a powerful current.
Exactly. And some economists argue that AMLO's policies, while well-intentioned, could actually hinder Mexico's economic growth in the long run. For example, there are concerns that his focus on fomento al consumo local could lead to protectionist policies that end up hurting Mexican businesses and consumers in the long term.
So there's a risk that by trying to protect themselves from outside influence, they might inadvertently limit their own potential.
Precisely. It's a delicate balance. And then there's the question of internal opposition. Not everyone in Mexico buys into AMLO's vision of soberanía nacional. There are those who believe that a more pragmatic approach, one that embraces global engagement and collaboration, might be more beneficial for Mexico's future.
So it's not just about external pressures, but also navigating these internal divisions and differing visions for the country's future.
Absolutely. AMLO's success in achieving his goals will depend in part on his ability to build consensus and bring a significant portion of the Mexican population along with him on this journey.
It sounds like AMLO's vision of soberanía nacional is as much a social and political project as it is an economic one. It requires a shift in mindset, a reimagining of what it means to be Mexican in the 21st century.
That's a really astute observation, and it's what makes this whole discussion so fascinating. AMLO is tapping into something deeply resonant for many Mexicans, this desire for self-determination, for recognition on the world stage, for charting their own course.
It's like he's asking the question, what if we wrote our own narrative instead of having it written for us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a question that resonates far beyond Mexico's borders. In an increasingly multipolar world where traditional power structures are being challenged, more and more countries might be asking themselves that same question.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into soberanía nacional and AMLO's vision for Mexico, what's the key takeaway for our listeners? What should they be paying attention to in the years to come?
I think the most important thing is to watch how AMLO navigates the inherent tensions between his pursuit of sovereignty and the realities of a globalized world. Can he find a balance between independence and cooperation? Can he achieve meaningful change without isolating Mexico on the global stage? These are the questions that will define his legacy and the future of Soberanía Nacional in Mexico.
It's a fascinating case study with implications that could ripple far beyond Mexico's borders. As always, it seems the only certainty is that the future remains unwritten. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been enlightening.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to delve into these complex topics with you.